Je me présente, Bas Martens. C'est un grand honneur. Mes très chers amis, c'est un très grand plaisir et un très grand honneur pour nous d'accueillir donc le prix Ludovic Trarieux au nom des bâtonnières d'Amsterdam. Je voulais vous dire à quel point elles sont, et nous sommes touchés au nom de la FBE, n'en parlons pas. C'est pour nous vraiment... allez, Bertrand Favreau. Vous savez que cet homme-là, il était tout seul il y a 20 ans. On est tous maintenant avec des droits de l'homme, des commissions, des prix. C'est lui. 30 ans. 30 ans. C'est lui. Et c'est presque même 40 ans, non ? 40 ans l'année prochaine. 40 ans l'année prochaine, cet homme était donc le premier, avec un prédécesseur, qui était donc aussi un bâtonnier, puisque nous sommes ici aussi au congrès de la Fédération des barreaux d'Europe, aussi un bâtonnier, puisque Bertrand Favreau a été bâtonnier de Bordeaux, comme Ludovic Trarieux, qui même est... Alors Bertrand Favreau, c'est bientôt qu'il va être ministre, mais Ludovic Trarieux a été ministre. Et donc, nous sommes donc ici pour ce prix extrêmement prestigieux désormais à travers le monde, puisque je ne sais pas si vous remarquerez que chaque fois que le prix Ludovic Trarieux est donc décerné, immédiatement l'AFP relaie l'information dans toutes les rédactions du monde, car c'est une manière extraordinaire de protéger, de mettre la lumière sur nos confrères et nos consoeurs admirables, en danger, menacés, parfois torturés. Et nous nous sentons bien faibles et bien humbles, nous qui sommes malgré tout tranquilles chez nous. Et grâce à ce prix, grâce à tous les partenaires, je dis une petite mention spéciale, bien entendu, il va y avoir tous les instituts, mais aussi à l'IDHE, qui fait un gros boulot pour permettre de connaître la situation de ses confrères. Aujourd'hui, nous allons honorer évidemment à la fois notre confrère iranien, et on a une pensée pour tous ceux qui sont encore incarcérés, pour tous ceux qui risquent leur vie en Iran, hommes et femmes pour les libertés, et confrères et consoeurs également, et aussi parce que nous sommes avocats, mais c'est l'état de droit que nous défendons, et bien évidemment aussi au barreau de Varsovie et à notre bâtonnier favori, qui lui aussi va être honoré. Mais je ne vais pas non plus, vous savez, les avocats y parlent, mais donc je vais quand même m'arrêter, parce que nous avons le bonheur d'avoir une juge. Et nous avons le bonheur d'avoir une juge qui est Madame Trottmann, qui est juge à la Cour suprême, à qui je vais passer immédiatement la parole, car ensuite, j'allais dire, Bertrand va pouvoir introduire nos lauréats, et nous allons les écouter, les prendre en photo, car diffuser de nouveau à travers le monde la remise de ce prix. Et je vous remercie, et merci encore. Nous sommes très, très fiers d'être avec vous ici aujourd'hui.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, members of the audience. We have come to the final and festive part of this Congress of the European Bars Federation. It's truly an honor for me as chair of the Foundation Judges for Judges to present the Special Jury Award for Bar Association of the Year to the Warsaw Bar Association, the oldest professional legal association in Poland. The members of the bar of the Polish capital have shown, and I quote, tireless commitment to the protection of the rule of law at both the institutional and judicial level in Poland. The award will be handed to their dean since 2016, Mikołaj Pietrzak, a man of many virtues and accomplishments, national and international. On the slide behind me, you can see a cartoon drawing of the comic strip De Rechter, well known in Dutch circles of judges and lawyers, about the situation in Poland. And the text reads, "Our correspondent looked around the Constitutional Court. That statue. Isn't her head attached a bit oddly? Yes, we wrung her neck." It seemed an appropriate picture to illustrate the serious democratic backsliding and breakdown of the rule of law that has been going on in the EU member state Poland since 2015, after the government came under the leadership of the PiS party. And the next slide shows at a glance, you don't have to read it, just graphic idea, the different rule of law infringement procedures launched by the Commission against Poland. At least that was until on the 8th of June, a sixth infringement procedure was launched regarding the Lex Tusk. As said, serious backsliding of the rule of law in this EU member state. Can you imagine what it is like to be a lawyer in Poland, where the whole judicial pyramid has been seriously compromised by the increased influence of the executive and legislative branches on the functioning of the judiciary? Since 2015, the Constitutional Court has been taken over at first by letting the then parliamentary PiS majority fill positions of seats in the court that had already been filled, in breach of the Polish constitution, and subsequently filling the vacant seats with PiS candidates. The Supreme Court's position as a court established by law has also been weakening in recent years. One of the main reasons is the introduction of unconstitutional changes regarding the appointment of judges to the ordinary courts and the Supreme Court, and the politicization of the new National Council of the Judiciary. This means that the rulings issued by the so-called neo-judges, so those appointed by the new Council of the Judiciary, cannot constitute binding decisions about the legal position of citizens. 51% of the Supreme Court already consists of neo-judges. At present, about 3,000, so about 1/3 of all Polish judges, is a neo-judge. So of course, there are still correctly appointed judges that guarantee that some of the cases of citizens can still be handled by a court that complies with constitutional, European, and international requirements. But this lack of certainty on the part of citizens as to who will hear their case is the biggest threat to the trust citizens should be able to have in the legal system. On the 5th of June 2023, the Luxembourg Court of Justice issued its fourth infringement judgment in relation to the so-called muzzle law, which aimed to dissuade or punish Polish judges for applying and upholding the EU rule of law requirements, and thus from reviewing, and where appropriate by referring questions to the EU court for a preliminary ruling, the unconstitutional judicial appointments made by the Neo-Council of the Judiciary. It is no surprise that the Luxembourg EU Court ruled that national judges cannot be disciplined for reviewing whether a court is established by law. Poland's muzzle law was immediately severely criticized by law professors, NGOs, judicial associations, the Venice Commission, the European Parliament. And it also led to public protests, including on Saturday, the 11th of January 2020, the March of 1,000 Robes, an unprecedented act of international judicial solidarity, which gathered judges and lawyers from more than 20 countries. Judges for Judges, myself included, joined this impressive march, which started in front of the Supreme Court, going through Warsaw Street toward the lower house of parliament, the Sejm. On Sunday, the morning after the 1,000 Robes March, we met with Warsaw's dean in the hotel lobby. Several people had indicated to us that he was the man to talk to for a broad view on what was happening in Poland regarding the rule of law crackdown. We spoke about two important Polish initiatives, free courts and KOS. Free courts founded in 2017 by 4 lawyers in defense of the independence of the judiciary and explaining in creative ways why that is so important for every citizen. And COS, the Justice Defense Committee, established in 2018, uniting NGOs operating in the area of the protection of human rights and the rule of law, as well as judges and prosecutors associations. Their aim is providing legal aid and moral support to repressed magistrates in national and international court procedures. And that is a judge you see there with the logo of COS, Judge Piotr Kaczmarek. But the Dean also outlined to us what all these so-called judicial reforms would lead to. And he was very clear about that: legal chaos. Why? Well, because of the growing number of neo-judges appointed. These neo-judges alone, or in a panel, issue numerous rulings every day, which can be undermined and appealed against, among others to the Strasbourg court. So also creating huge execution problems, which is not conducive to legal certainty and trust in the state. And as the Dean said in a podcast a few months ago, it really does require a lot of imagination on the part of civil society to understand that the removal of the procedural safeguards is an extremely grave and dangerous situation, and that it inevitably leads to an undemocratic state. Back to the march. You will find the Dean on the right, behind the banner stating the right to independence, the right to Europe.
With my daughter.
Yes. And some of you might recognize the typography. Indeed, the same typography as in the Solidarność logo. The Polish trade union movement of the 70s and 80s of last century, led by Lech Walesa, that played such an important role in the resistance to the communist regime in Poland. Its major strength lay in its unusually broad social alliance. It united all kinds of citizens, regardless of backgrounds, beliefs, or religion. Joining in was an expression of the desire for change in Poland, and that desire for change is something that links us to the present day. So again, a broad social alliance in Poland, this time fighting for free and independent courts in line with European standards to ensure that every citizen has recourse to an independent judge if they believe that their civil rights and freedoms are being violated. What is then the role of bar associations in this uphill battle? As a former special rapporteur on the independence of judges and lawyers stated, bar associations have a crucial role to play in a democratic society, to enable the free and independent exercise of the legal profession, and to ensure access to justice and the protection of human rights. In particular, due process and fair trial guarantees. Bar associations have an important advocacy role in upholding the rule of law and promoting the equal and effective enjoyment of human rights. That is not a no-strings-attached assignment, precisely because the profession of a lawyer plays a central role in the administration of justice, the defense of human rights, democracy, and the rule of law. It is also that lawyers nowadays, both individually and institutionally, are increasingly the target of attacks of all kinds. In Poland, we have seen lawyers targeted with surveillance. The Warsaw Dean himself, for example, see the case pending in Strasbourg. Polish lawyers have been targeted with disciplinary measures for the statements they make in court, which are critical of politically appointed neo-judges. Therefore, it is good that the Council of Europe is working on a new legal instrument aimed at strengthening the protection of the profession of lawyer. I come almost to the conclusion of my talk. Of course, judges and lawyers have different roles to play in the legal process, but the independence and impartiality of the judiciary and the independence of lawyers and the legal profession are both necessary elements, and therefore also the contribution of both professions is essential in the realization of a democratic state built on the rule of law, providing equal access to justice for all. It is important that this award be given. It is a sign of moral support to those colleagues who, even under the most difficult circumstances, stick their necks out and continue to be guided by their core professional values. But at the same time, it is also a moment of inspiration for all lawyers as members of European bar associations to reflect on the European values and what their task and role is in society. Mr. Dean, when you were interviewed in January 2021 and asked to reflect on your first term as a dean, one of the things you said was, "We have shown the advocacy from a good pro-social side necessary to protect rights and freedoms. We have become a partner for non-governmental organizations and journalists. We have regained public trust. This is the most important thing." The lawyers from the Warsaw Bar play to this day an incredibly important role in tackling the breakdown of the rule of law in Poland. They are rightly applauded for this. And in an interview in 2020, you said, "When I became a lawyer, I felt as if I had grabbed God's legs. I believe in the bar," you said. "This is my life, and I never believed that I would become the Dean of the Warsaw Chamber." Well, here you are, and it is therefore that you today are presented the Special Jury Award for Bar Association of the Year as Dean of the Warsaw Bar Association. Congratulations.
I want to thank Dominique, telling also that her humoristic dream is not mine. Mr. President, Mr. Dean, Monsieur le Bâtonnier, Shakespeare said, brevity is the soul of a speech, so I will be brief, very brief. It's a great privilege for us to see that this distinction or this distinctive mention or citation awarded this 2017 is presented to date to the illustrious Bar Association of Warsaw. After the Bar of Balochistan in the Bar of the occupied Crimea, which refused to cancel the license of Emil Kurbetinov on demand of the Russian Ministry of Justice in 2019. This is the demonstration that, contrary to what many believe too lazily, all bars not defend, especially in troubled periods of the history of justice, human rights with the same determination and courage. This is why the jury chose to distinguish the exemplary fight by the only weapon of the law, by the single weapon of European law, as led by the Warsaw Bar to defend the rule of law to the benefit not only of all the bars of Europe, but also of all the bars in the world. Congratulations, I present now you this award.
Madam Chair, Madame Daken, there she is. Monsieur le Président, honorable guests, colleagues, friends, I am touched by the presentation, not only because I saw my daughter on the march, which brings back many very powerful, powerful memories, but to see a synopsis of the extreme emotions and experiences we've gone through over the past 7 years from an external perspective is very moving. And I think I speak on behalf of all the members of our Bar Association. We would have all been touched to see it from this perspective. I am greatly, greatly honored to be here to accept the distinction of the Ludovic Trarieux Special Mention for the Bar of the Year on behalf of the legal community that I call home, the Warsaw Bar Association. This distinction is a great privilege. The patron of the prize, Ludovic Trarieux, as a statesman, an advocate, as the founder of the League of Human Rights, symbolized everything that our legal communities hold dear: the struggle to uphold rights, freedoms, justice for the individual, even in the face of adversity, or perhaps in particular in the face of adversity. These values constitute our legal and ethical compass as advocates, and in fact are the raison d'être for our profession. In times of injustice, our perseverance in upholding human dignity, human rights, and fundamental freedoms is the very test of our professional ethics and our backbone. The entire legal community in Poland has faced such injustices over the past years. A populist government has systematically violated the rule of law, undermined the independence of the judiciary, targeted, in particular, independent judges and prosecutors, with reprisals severely weakening the safety net that is to provide protection for the rights and freedoms of all people in Poland and across Europe. The advocates of the Warsaw Bar Association have been relentless in their opposition to the devastation of the justice system, most notably defending judges and prosecutors, protesters, and human rights activists against government-led repressions. Make no mistake, even today, judges and prosecutors, and sometimes advocates, face disciplinary proceedings merely for applying EU law in order to protect judicial independence. Even today, these judges, prosecutors, are defended by members of our bar, the Warsaw Bar Association. But this is not the only injustice we have faced over the past years. We have seen pushbacks in violation of the non-refoulement principle at the Belarusian border. Exhausted, starving, and freezing families and children being denied the bare minimum required by the Geneva Conventions, pushed back across the border even though they demand international protection as refugees. I'm very proud to say that no legal community responded as numerously as the members of the Warsaw Bar Association in representing these extremely vulnerable people, demanding due process under international law, scrutinizing and calling out violations of the law by the border guard and the military, and litigating before all courts, including the European Court of Human Rights, all on a pro bono basis. Further injustices which we faced include the flood of people escaping a heinous war waged by the Russian state against Ukraine. Early last year, a deluge of people escaping war arrived in Poland. I am very proud that the members of the Warsaw Bar Association, as all of Polish society, opened their hearts and homes. The lawyers of our bar drove to the border to pick up families with no place to stay and drove them back to their homes in Warsaw. The advocates and trainees of our bar organized material support for those seeking shelter from the war. But most importantly, our community did what they do best. They organized a broad system of legal support for Ukrainians in Poland and provided legal help to those who needed it most, those who had fled from their homes with the shirts on their backs and a handful of belongings. I am so very proud of the 10,000 members of our bar for their defense of democracy, independence of the judiciary, rule of law, basic principles of humanitarian law, human rights, and fundamental freedoms. This special mention is critical moral support for lawyers whose struggle for our core values has lasted so long and at times seems so very, very frustrating. On behalf of our bar members, I would like to thank the members of the jury for the appreciation, the dedication of the Warsaw Bar, for the dedication of the Warsaw Bar to the principles which Ludovic Trarieux himself held so dear. This mention for our bar is all the more significant in that it has been awarded alongside this year's Ludovic Trarieux Human Rights Prize, which was awarded to an exceptional lawyer whose courage and perseverance in the struggle for human dignity in the face of extreme personal danger, torture, lashing, and imprisonment by the repressive Iranian authoritarian state is unparalleled and should constitute a beacon for all lawyers, jurists, and human rights defenders across the world. Mr. Amrisalar Davoudi, the members of the Warsaw Bar Association, the entire legal community in Poland salute you. On their behalf, please accept our deepest expression of admiration and respect. Our challenges pale in comparison to the repressions you have to face. Thank you once again.
Please, Mr. Lana. Heb ik nodig.
جایزه با ارزش به او تبریک میگم به همکار عزیزم آقای امیرسالار داوودی که این جایزه با ارزش به او تعلق گرفته و سپاسگزارم از اینکه یکی از همکاران دربند و زندانی من رو مورد ستایش و احترام قرار دادید. مهمترین نتیجه و خصیصه دموکراسی وجود دادگاه‌های مستقله که امکان اجرای عدالت رو ممکن میکنه. اما متاسفانه سیستم قضایی ایران به گونه‌ای است که امکان اجرای عدالت در آن تقریبا غیر ممکنه. قضات آزادی عمل ندارند، امنیت ندارند و کاملا تحت نفوذ نهادهای امنیتی هستند. به همین دلیل در اکثر موارد و مخصوصا در مورد رسیدگی به اتهامات امنیتی و سیاسی و عقیدتی که طرف دعوا و طرف شکایت حکومت هیچ گونه قدرتی ندارند و نمیتوانند تصمیم درستی بگیرند. و در این ارتباط وکلایی که جرأت میکنند از متهمین سیاسی عقیدتی در دادگاه دفاع بکنند مورد به غضب حکومت قرار میگیرند و حکومت اونها رو تنبیه میکنه با حبس‌های طویل المدت یا محرومیت از شغل وکالت و یا بندهای دیگر. فقط از سپتامبر 2022 بیش از 20 وکیل با اتهامات کیفری مواجه شدند و برای بازجویی احضار شدند. بعضی از اونها هم در زندان رفتن. یکی از افرادی که شناخته شده در این زمینه هست به صداقت و پاکدامنی و همچنین شهامت امیرسالار داوودیه. امیرسالار داوودی صرفاً به جرم انجام وظیفه وکالتی و فقط به خاطر دفاع از موکلین خودش گرفتار زندان شده. چند سال در زندان موند و متاسفانه چند سال دیگه از حبس او باقی مانده. این میزان عملکرد حکومت در مورد وکلای دادگستری نشان از سانسور شدیدی است که در ایران حکومت میکنه. حکومت حتی نمیتواند کلام و عملکرد قانونی وکلا رو تحمل بکنه و با پرونده سازی سعی میکنه جلوی عملکرد اونها رو بگیره. دادن جوایزی از قبیل این جایزه‌ای که به امیرسالار تعلق گرفت این فایده رو داره که نورافکن میفته روی موضوعات و مسائلی که به خاطر اون جایزه داده شده و از این جهت من این جایزه رو با ارزش خطاب کردم، برای اینکه نورافکن رو روشن میکنه روی وضعیتی که وکلا در ایران هستند و از اون مهمتر عدم استقلال قوه قضاییه و سانسور شدیدی که در ایران حکومت میکنه. سپاسگزارم از اینکه از طریق حمایت از امیرسالار داوودی نگاهی به مشکلات ایران دارید. خواهش میکنم از حمایت خودتون از امیرسالار داوودی و سایر وکلایی که در زندان هستند ادامه بدید. حمایت شما برای ما اهمیت بسیاری داره. باز هم سپاسگزارم.
Esteemed presidents, dear Tanat, dear colleagues, guests, and friends, it is an honor to be here today to give a voice to our Iranian colleagues and human rights defenders who are threatened merely for carrying out their activities as lawyers. Their knowledge, freedom, and independence is under threat for many years now, as witnessed inter alia by the fact that the International Human Rights Prize Ludovic Trarieux was awarded to fellow lawyer Merenguit Kar in 2002, Nasrin Sotoudeh in 2018, and Amisalah Dawoodi last year. And not for nothing, the 2024 Day of the Endangered Lawyer will be focused on the situation in Iran. The ongoing protests in the country, which flared up September last year and escalated after the death of Mahsa Amini, the 22-year-old Kurdish girl, died in a Tehran hospital while in the custody of the authorities after being arrested by the morality police for letting a lock of her hair to be seen outside the compulsory hijab, have once again revealed the establishment's idiosyncrasy towards fundamental rights and freedoms. Thousands of protesters were arrested and sentenced following closed-door and summary trials. The fact that among them were many journalists and lawyers clearly reveals the aim of silencing, on the one hand, information made evident by imposing severe restriction on the internet, blocking access to social media, and on the other, silencing those who are called upon to ensure the effectiveness of the right of defense, the lawyers. Not forgetting the constant discrimination and humiliation to which women are subjected in defiance of the principle of civilization enshrined in Article 1 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which Iran also ratified, according to which all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights, where dignity comes even before rights. The freedoms of thought, conscience, religion, expression, assembly, and association, which are the cornerstones of a civil life, constantly challenged in the name of religious obscurantism, as well as the right to life, stubbornly denied through the worldwide sad record of executions, up 75% in 2022, and the rights to liberty, fair trial, and not to be prosecuted for merely defending them, should always find lawyers in the front line. The conditional, however, is a must, since as the United Nations Special Rapporteur on the situation of human rights in Iran stigmatized in his latest report, the legal profession in the Islamic Republic of Iran is not independent in spite of international principles to which Iran also formally commits itself. In the midst of all these obstacles, there are those colleagues who, honoring the robes they wear, bravely put their freedom, their work, and their private lives at risk every day in the name of justice and fundamental rights. Among those of them who have must suffered judicial reprisals with extremely heavy sentences, including corporal punishment, today we celebrate and give a voice to Armisalar Davoudi, a prominent human rights lawyer, aged 41, known for representing human rights activists and other detained people for their social and political activities. He is also the founder and director of a Telegram channel called Without Retouching, featuring a variety of critical content about the authorities' treatment of lawyers in particular, and more broadly, the human rights situation in Iran. He was arrested by security forces on 20 November 2018 to be transferred to the infamous Evin prison. And prior to his arrest, officers had raided his office and home, confiscating a number of his personal files and belongings. On the 1st of June 2018, Branch 15 of the Tehran Revolutionary Court sentenced Amir Salar to 111 lashes and a total of 30 years in prison, plus a fine of 60 million reals, around 1,400 US dollars, and the deprivation of his social rights for 2 years. 15 years in prison just for forming a group to overthrow the political system through his Telegram channel, propaganda against the system, publishing lies and insulting officials and the leader, amongst other charges. Amis Salar went on hunger strike for 10 days in February 2020 to protest his continued detention and being denied follow due to COVID-19. On the 13th of April 2021, he was prison exiled from Evin prison to Rajai Shar prison, with reports that Evin prison was being cleared of political prisoners. His request for a retrial was then granted by Branch 41 of the Supreme Court on June 13, and after he was released on bail. But 1 month later, Branch 28 of the Tehran Revolutionary Court upheld the original ruling by Branch 15. After that, he has been finally sentenced to 14 years in prison by Branch 36 of Tehran Court of Appeals on the 1st of December 2021. On the 26th of June 2022, he surrendered to serve the rest of his sentence at Evin prison. Amir Salah Davoudi, as well as other lawyers and human rights defenders persecuted in Iran and worldwide, call on us to stand up for them. These remind us the importance of solidarity to preserve and reinforce the values of freedom and independence of the legal profession, and lead all of us to support their cause. Because those who remain silent, or even worse, complacent, inexorably play into the hands of the tyrant of the day, who, fearing truth and dissent, crushes them. To conclude, I would like to express my sincere appreciation to the Amsterdam Bar Association and the European Bars Federation, with a special mention for my friends Agat and Adri. And I would like to urge each one of us to offer, as far as we are able and available, our contribution in defense of human rights and people defending them. I believe this is the best way to keep giving a voice to those who have gone and are still going as far as to sacrifice their private lives, their freedom, and even their own lives to defend fundamental rights and to ensure a better future for all. Thank you.
Good afternoon, distinguished guests, honorable judges, colleagues, friends. I wanted to express my gratitude to the organizers, especially to the president of the Amsterdam Bar Association, Jacqueline Sharp, the president of the FBE, Bas Martens, and of course, the president of the IDHAE, Bertrand Favreau, and all the presidents of the endowing associations. I would like also to salute the Supreme Court Judge, Tamara Trotman, and the president of the Warsaw Bar Association, Mikołaj Pietrzak. I would also like to salute I'm Antonio Lana, President of the Italian Human Rights Association of Lawyers and Vice President of the IDHAI. It is a great honor for me to be here today and speak on behalf of the jury of the International Human Rights Prize, Ludovic Trarieux. Recognizing the efforts, sacrifices, and personal hardship perdure in their career for the defense of human rights, the supremacy of law, and the struggle against racism and intolerance in any form. Since its origin in 1984, the prize commemorates the memory of Ludovic Trarieux, a French lawyer who in 1898, at the time of the Dreyfus Affair, founded the French League for the Defense of the Human Rights and Citizens. In the words of the president of the French League after Trarieux's death, Francis de Pressensé, Trarieux leaves two immortal lessons. Firstly, the example of a life dedicated to law and freedom, ennobled in its decline by the sacrifice of struggle. Secondly, the League of Human Rights, which will continue the work of which he and we have only laid the foundation of. Year after year, the International Human Rights Prize has kept Trarieux's legacy alive by recognizing and rewarding the work of our fellow human rights lawyers all over the world. Starting from Nelson Mandela, which received the first Ludovic Trarieux Prize awarded in 1985 while still imprisoned. It was the first time he was awarded a prize by fellow lawyers. 5 years later, Nelson Mandela was released. The prize, from 1990, is awarded every year jointly by the Institute of Human Rights of the Bar of Bordeaux, the Institute of Training of Human Rights of the Paris Bar, the Institute of Human Rights of the Brussels Bar, the Unione Forense per la Tutela dei Diritti Umani, Roma, the Recht Sanwalkammer, Berlin, the Luxembourg Bar, the Geneva Bar, the Amsterdam Bar Association, as well as the International Union of Lawyers, and the Institute of Human Rights of European Lawyers. As well as making an irreplaceable contribution to the endowment, organization, and delivery of the prize, these associations play an invaluable role in several initiatives aimed at protecting human rights, establishing the role of law, and promoting democracy. The association aimed to diffuse Trarieux's ideals, engaging firsthand in the activities required to uphold his legacy. I cannot help but mention the efforts of Mariolana in the presentation of the award to Mr. who I meant, in 2008, which, although free, was prohibited by the regime to leave his country, requiring Mariolana to deliver the prize directly to the laureate in Myanmar. Furthermore, promoted by the IDHAE, this association curated the Global Observatory for Defense Rights and Violation of Lawyers' Rights, and published a report of Ces Avocats, lawyers murdered, imprisoned, persecuted around the world, highlighting the growing number of lawyers under treats. In consideration of his tireless work in favor of the protection of human rights in Iran, and in recognition of the suffering he is still undergoing while imprisoned, the jury chose Mr. Davoudi as the laureate for this year's Ludovic Trarieux Prize. In the words of my colleague Bertrand Favreau, the decision to award Davoudi was a testament to the victory of democratic forces and human rights defenders. Mr. Davoudi is an Iranian human rights lawyer who was arrested in 2018 and later imprisoned. He was originally sentenced, as just mentioned, to a total of 30 years in prison and 111 lashes, plus a fine of 60 million reals. The conditions of Mr. Davoudi's imprisonment are a serious cause of concern for human rights organizations worldwide. On behalf of the jury, I would like to congratulate Mr. Davoudi's family and to convey my most sincere hope that Amir Saral will soon obtain justice, the same justice he has always thought so hard to protect. I would be remiss of me not to mention that Mr. Davoudi's wife, Tanaz Kolakian, who is here today to accept the prize in his stead, is also a human rights lawyer, whom in 2019 was questioned of charges of propaganda against the state of Iran. While her case was dropped, we all admire her continued effort to guarantee the protection of human rights in her country, as well as her fight for her husband's freedom. It is an honor for all of us to have you here. As we all know, the last year has been particularly fraught with the conflict for Iran, starting from the death of Mahsa Amini, while in the custody of the morality police, and proceeding with months of mass protests across the country. The fight against violation of human rights in Iran will be a hard and long one. People like Mr. and Mrs. Davoudi give all of us hope for a better future. Thank you.
Dear Madam Kolakian, believe me, as previously said by Mr. Lana, like every year, it's an honor for us to award you this medal. Iran has always been at the heart of our concerns, at least since 2000, and it's clear. It is a sad observation that I make, of course, that with Turkey, Iran is the only country which has received, over the last 20 years, 3 tributes to the renewed persecution. 2 were awarded to illustrious women, Mrs. Merangiskar and Mrs. Nasrin Sotoudeh. And Mr. Davoudi is the first man among so many victims we know so well. Since 1984, as previously said. Mr. Dawoodi has also been from South Africa to Zimbabwe via China, Brazil, and Kazakhstan, and so many other countries, the 30th winner of this prize. The 30th to receive an award that celebrates next year, as Dominique Attia said, its 40th anniversary. 17 men, 13 women. Certainly, some will say the jury has improvements to make in terms of parity. But after all, it's not the jury which determine each year the degree of pain falling upon a human being because he is a lawyer. And we don't forget that you also, madam, persecuted, you were summoned to the Evin prison. So we know this medal is a very little thing. It's certainly not commensurate with the sufferings endured by your husband, as by those who preceded him. We humbly give it to you. But we ask you to receive, as said Anton Lana, as a message of hope. Message of hope for you, for your husband, for your family. This medal is always a tribute to the admirable courage of those who go so far as to accept the destruction of their own person for the defense, as Ludovic Trarieux said in a beautiful quotation that you can read here, for the defense of the law, of the justice, of the humanity. Unfortunately, Nelson Mandela was not able to have this medal in his cell at the Portsmouth prison, where he was still for 5 years when he was awarded with this prize, because the guards refused to allow his doctor, who received the prize on his behalf, to give it to him. It was in 1985. But let us come forward, thinking to another laureate, Aktham Neise, in 2004, when he learned of his nomination in his cell in Syria, he wrote about it. It was as if the sun had shattered the walls of darkness that enclosed me. A few months later, he was freed, and he was able to receive his award physically in Brussels. Let us, or let me remember that 300 years ago, a French writer wrote famous letters from Persia. Because of censorship in France, he was forced to publish them anonymously in Amsterdam. In one of these letters, Zelis said to Uzbek exactly the words that Amin Salah could say today to his jailers. In the prison where you keep me, I am more free than you. No, Velayat Faki will not be able to permanently prevent any reform in Iran. Today, expressing the warmest wishes for the release of Amin Salah Dawoodi, our 30th laureate, I present now this medal of hope so that it contributes to bursting the dark walls of the prison and soon opens the door. Just for a picture.
Ladies and gentlemen, this message for Amir Salar Davoudi in Evin prison, Tehran. خانم ها و آقایان، هیئت محترم مراسم جایزه لودویک تراریو، گرمترین سلام های مرا از داخل زندان اوین پذیرا باشید. بیش از هر کلامی بهترین سپاسهای خود را از انتخابم به عنوان وکیل دادگستری دریافت کننده جایزه معتبر و ارزشمند لودویک تراریو ابراز می کنم. چنانکه می دانید به دلیل بودنم در زندان اوین امکان حضور در این مراسم را ندارم و از این رو خوشحالم که بانوی وکیل یعنی همسرم طناز کلاهچیان از جانب من حضور می یابد. دوستان عزیز، وضعیت حقوق بشر در ایران تحت حاکمیت جمهوری اسلامی وضعیتی اسفناک و غیر قابل دفاع است. امیدوارم حفظ و صیانت از حقوق و کرامت انسانی در این سرزمین کهن و دیرپا رو به بهبودی گیرد. در حال اگرچه شما من را شایسته دریافت این تقدیر ارزشمند دانسته اید، لیکن نمیتوانم فراموش کنم که بسیاری از فعالان حقوق بشر و در رأس آنها وکلای معتمد سالهاست که در راستای دفاع همه جانبه از حقوق بشر در ایران از همه داشته‌های خود بهره می‌برند، بی آنکه توقعی داشته باشند و یا لزوماً نامی از آنها باشد. امیدوارم محبوس شدن فعالان حقوق بشر و خصوصاً وکلای دادگستری تنها دلیل دیده شدن فعالیت‌ها و زحمات بی‌دریغشان نباشد. النهایه ضمن ارج نهادن به تمام تلاش‌ها و زحماتی که طی بیش از 4 دهه در این کشور و البته سراسر جهان در صیانت از حقوق انسان‌ها معمول گردیده است، بر خود فرض و واجب می‌دانم تا از مهمترین حرکت‌های حقوق بشری اخیر یعنی جنبش زن، زندگی، آزادی و حرکت ملی نجات ایران تقدیر ویژه به عمل آورم. از این رو این جایزه را در نهایت تواضع به زنان و دختران شجاع سرزمینم اهدا می‌کنم. به نمایندگی این جایزه را به همسرم طناز کلاهچیان و دخترم آیرین داوودی تقدیم می‌کنم تا نمادی باشد از احترام و قدردانی عمیقم به زنان و دختران سرزمینم که در سخت‌ترین روزها، ماه‌ها و سالهای گذشته بر آنها همچنان ایستادند و مطمئنم که روزی بر بلندای احقاق حقوق نادیده گرفتهشان خواهند ایستاد. بیش از این اوقات شریف شما را تسطیع نمی‌کنم و برای شما بهترین ها را آرزومندم. Ladies and gentlemen, you know I'm a lawyer in Iran and a human rights lawyer in Iran. And I have a message from women and human rights in Iran for you. به نام زن، زندگی، آزادی. با احترام خدمت همه حاضرین در این همایش و سپاس از دعوت کنندگان این جشن برای اهدای جایزه به یکی از با افتخارترین وکلای حقوق بشری جناب آقای امیرسالار داوودی. سالهاست که وکلای حقوق بشر در ایران مورد هجمه قرار می‌گیرند، اما با وجود تمام مشکلات موجود در امر وکالت، دست از تلاش برای حفظ حقوق شهروندی و دفاع از موکلین خود بر نداشتند. وکلایی که بی‌دریغ و بی‌منت سالهاست در این زمینه فعالیت می‌کنند و همان گونه که جناب داوودی گفتند شاید هیچگاه نامی از آنها برده نشود. در سالهای اخیر شدت برخوردهای حکومت جمهوری اسلامی با وکلا و دشمنی با وکلای مستقل بیشتر شده، به گونه‌ای که از سال 88 تا کنون تعداد بسیاری از وکلای حقوق بشر را حتی برای مدتی محبوس نمودند تا فعالیت آنها را محدودتر کنند، که البته بیشترین مدت حبس متعلق به امیرسالار داوودی به مدت 14 سال مجموع و 10 سال اجرای حکم میباشد. اما وکلای شریف هیچگاه دست از تلاش برای دفاع مستقل و بی‌منت بر نداشتند. این امر در سال گذشته و همزمان با شروع جنبش زن، زندگی، آزادی مشاهده گردید و تعداد وکلایی که دفاع از متهمین را بر عهده داشتند بیشتر از گذشته شد که میتوان نتیجه گرفت تقابل حکومت با برخورد وکلای حقوق بشری منجر به شکست شده است. حتی در ماه‌های اخیر نیز تعداد زیادی از وکلا را برای محدودتر کردن فعالیتشان و ایجاد رعب و وحشت در جامعه وکالت به دادسرای امنیت احضار تا با گرفتن تعهد و بازگذاشتن پرونده آنها را مجبور نمایند تا از دفاع از حقوق متهمین سیاسی و امنیتی عقب نشینی کنند، که متاسفانه این امر نیز منتهی به نتیجه دلخواه حکومت نگردید و همچنان وکلای حقوق بشری بدون منت و حتی ترس از بازداشت و تهدید حکومت به فعالیت خود ادامه می‌دهند. این جانب به عنوان وکیل دادگستری که وکالت بسیاری از متهمین سیاسی و امنیتی را بر عهده داشته و در کنار امیرسالار داوودی همچنان دغدغه حقوق بشری داشتم، ضمن سپاس از این نهاد خواهان حمایت بیشتر از وکلای حقوق بشری هستم تا با خاطری آسوده‌تر به دفاع از موکلین خود بپردازند. با سپاس.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, congratulations to the laureates. Very impressive ceremony and very valued. And with this, we come to the end of this very long day, very fruitful day. And I think we go home with a lot of new perspectives on integrity, on dilemmas that we face when we take on cases, but we are humbled by the stories that we hear in a situation in other countries where it's really not so easy, and lawyers even get imprisoned. All the luck, madam, to your husband and to you. Continue in your work, in your brave work. And I all invite you to the drinks, which is presented by the Amsterdam Bar. And to Madam Deans also, thank you very much for hosting this day. And,
it was our pleasure.
And we'll see each other tonight and tomorrow.
Yes.
Thank you.
Kheli goed.